What happens when the bedrock of a nation's legal system is questioned by those sworn to uphold it? In a stunning congressional hearing, a seemingly routine policy discussion about foreign conflicts and domestic troop deployment spiraled into a profound constitutional standoff. A determined congressman pressed a top official for simple commitments to avoid an unprovoked war and, more fundamentally, to respect the authority of the nation's courts. The responses, however, were anything but simple. They were a masterclass in evasion, raising a deeply unsettling question for every citizen. Does the executive branch believe it can operate beyond the reach of the judiciary? And if so, what does that mean for the rule of law itself?
Common ground, no war in Iran. In 2016, President Trump was one of the few people on the Republican stage to have the guts to say that George W. Bush's war in Iraq was an utter disaster. He promised the American people no endless wars. Tucker Carlson has said that thousands of Americans will die if there's a war in Iran. And he is cautioning that currently neocons are trying to get President Trump into a war in Iran. Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene has said the American people don't want to bomb Iran. Will you today assure the American people and the MAGA movement that you will not bomb Iran unless we are hit?
Congressman, it's good to hear you quoting conservatives.
When they're right, I quote them.
I will tell you this, the president has been earnestly and completely committed to a peace process, has given Iran every opportunity, those talks ongoing, but he also fully recognizes the threat that Iran with a nuclear weapon would exist.
Will you commit to us not bombing them? I mean, that's what the conservative MAGA movement is calling for it online. You'll see. I mean, they want a commitment that we not bomb Iran unless we're directly hit.
Well, here in this forum, it wouldn't be prudent for me to commit or not to commit. My job is to be postured and prepared in the region, just as the chairman.
How about this?
Would you any potential capability?
Would you agree with this analysis that Netanyahu is itching for a fight? If Netanyahu uses American missiles to hit Iran, he's going to drag us into a war there because Iran's going to say they're using American missiles. Our military knows that you cannot just through hits eliminate Iran's nuclear capability. They'll simply go underground and they will then end monitoring. And unlike Iraq, they're in heavily civilian sites. Will you stand up today and make it clear to Netanyahu that that escalation, what he's threatening just yesterday, is not in the American interest, that he should not be dragging America into war with Iran?
Well, Congressman, that question included a lot of speculation. What I know is that Bibi Netanyahu is going to put his country first, and we're going to put our country first, and we're positioned properly in the region to ensure that we're prepared for any potential contingency.
Are you concerned about his escalation into Iran, and will you assure the American people you're going to do everything possible to keep us out of a war in Iran?
We remain, as the president has said, committed to creating the conditions for peace, creating the conditions for talks where Iran does not have the ability to develop a nuclear weapon.
I'm running out of time, 2 minutes, so let me ask you another matter. Senator Baldwin asked you about the legal authority for the Marines in my state. I disagree with you. I thought not only do I not want Marines in Iran, I don't want them in California. But I don't want to get a gotcha. You know, they said, what provision? Your administration since then has filed in the federal district court. You're arguing that the Marines should be allowed to defend federal property. I disagree with you. That's your argument. Here's where I hope we can agree. Whatever the federal district court decides, will you abide by it?
Well, this is a pending situation.
So will you agree, though, that it's not my legal view, it's not your legal view that makes the decision in America. It's the federal judiciary. If the federal court in California and the San Francisco district judge has orders a preliminary injunction, will you agree to abide by the federal courts?
What I will tell you is my job right now is to ensure the troops that we have in Los Angeles are capable of supporting law enforcement in there.
Sir, I agree with that, but will you?
And we know we have the
assure,
constitutional and statutory authority.
That's fine, but can
you
just assure us that you'll abide by the decisions of the courts?
We've always looked at the decisions of
the Vice President has said that he doesn't believe that the courts should be respected in military matters.
Well, This is not my lane, but we also recognize that the way in which the judiciary has expanded its powers.
But can you just give a simple? Okay, let me ask you this: two simple questions. You got 30 seconds. I'm not trying to trick you. I think it would assure the American people, because it shouldn't be Ro Khanna's view of the Constitution. It shouldn't be Secretary Hegseth's. It should be the Supreme Court and the federal courts. Can you assure the American people on two things? You will respect any Supreme Court decision on this matter about whether the Marines are constitutional, and you will respect the district courts when they rule before the Supreme Court rules.
What I can say is we should not have local judges determining foreign policy or national security policy for the country.
So you're not willing to say you would respect those decisions?
What I'm saying is local district judges shouldn't make foreign policy for the United States.
Gentleman's time's expired. Chair now recognizes the gentleman from Mississippi, Mr. Kelly.
Thank you, Secretary Higgs.
The confrontation we've just witnessed transcends a simple policy disagreement. It is a raw, unfiltered glimpse into a fundamental struggle over power, accountability, and the very definition of the rule of law in the United States. On one side, we have a congressman attempting to secure commitments on behalf of the American people. On the other, a high-ranking official whose evasive language reveals a perspective where executive and military authority might supersede other branches of government. Let's dissect the strategies and implications at play. The exchange began with the looming threat of war with Iran. The congressman's tactic was exceptionally shrewd. Instead of framing his opposition in typical partisan terms, he co-opted the rhetoric of the MAGA movement itself, quoting President Donald Trump's promise of no endless wars and citing warnings from Tucker Carlson and Marjorie Taylor Greene. This was a calculated move to disarm the official, framing the request for peace not as a demand from the left, but as a core desire of the very political base the administration purports to represent. He asked for a simple assurance: no bombing Iran unless America is directly hit. The official's response set the tone for the entire hearing. He refused to give a direct answer, claiming it wouldn't be prudent to make such a commitment. Instead, he deflected, using carefully crafted, ambiguous language about being postured and prepared, and creating the conditions for peace. This is a classic defensive strategy in politics. Reframe the question and respond with broad, unprovable statements of intent rather than concrete policy commitments. He sidestepped the core question of whether he would initiate a conflict, focusing only on his operational readiness. The goal was to appear strong and responsible while conceding nothing. But the most critical part of the hearing was the pivot to a domestic legal battle. The congressman brought up the issue of Marines being deployed in California and a pending federal court case on the matter. Here, the question became even simpler and more fundamental than matters of war and peace. He asked, repeatedly and with increasing clarity, if the official would abide by the decisions of the federal judiciary. This was no longer about policy preference. It was about constitutional obligation. The official's response was a stunning escalation of his earlier evasiveness. First, he attempted to dismiss the issue as a pending situation. When pressed, he subtly began to delegitimize the judiciary itself, alluding to the way in which the judiciary has expanded its powers. This line of argument hints at a broader political theory that views the courts as having overstepped their constitutional bounds. The final exchange was the most revealing. When asked point-blank to assure the American people he would respect court orders, the official stated, "We should not have local judges determining foreign policy or national security policy for the country." This statement is the heart of the entire controversy. It is not just an evasion. It is a direct challenge to the principle of judicial review and the separation of powers. The American system of government is built on a system of checks and balances, where the judiciary serves as the ultimate arbiter of legality, even for the executive and military. To suggest that a local judge, a term used here to diminish the authority of a federal district court, has no legitimate role in matters of national security, is to argue for a sphere of government action that is immune to legal oversight. This places the official's judgment above the law itself. This hearing, therefore, was not merely a heated exchange. It was an exposure of a dangerous ideology. The official's refusal was a declaration that in a conflict between his administration's goals and a court order, the court order might not be the final word. This answers the question we posed at the beginning. This exchange reveals a clear and present challenge to the rule of law. When an official refuses to commit to obeying the courts, they are implicitly arguing for a system where power, not law, is the ultimate authority. The issue is no longer about Iran or California. It's about whether the United States will remain a nation of laws or become something else entirely. What do you think about this exchange? Is the official stance a pragmatic approach to national security or a dangerous overreach of executive power? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you found this analysis insightful, don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more in-depth reports.